Hi viewers, welcome back to Master J Skills. In today's video, we will see Spring Boot auto configuration. We will see in detail about Spring Boot auto configuration. It's a very simple concept. Make sure to watch a complete video without skipping for more clarity. And don't forget to subscribe to Master J Skills. Without making much delay, let's start. So Spring Boot auto configuration. Spring Boot auto configuration feature automatically configures the Spring application based on the jar dependencies included in the projects. It will configure automatically according to the dependencies it included, but how, in which way it will configure, we will see later. So we can enable the auto configuration feature by using the annotation called enable auto configuration. With the help of enable auto configuration annotation, we can enable the auto configuration feature of Spring Boot, but we are not using the enable auto configuration annotation as of now because it is wrapped inside the Spring Boot application annotation. So instead of using enable auto configuration, we can directly use the application Spring Boot application annotation. If enable auto configuration only included in the Spring Boot, then why to use this particular Spring Boot application annotation? Because Spring Boot application annotation also includes at component scan, enable auto configuration, add configuration. These three are included inside the Spring Boot application. Instead of including individually component scan, enable auto configuration, add configuration, so including instead of including individual these three configuration, we can directly use the Spring Boot application annotation, and it makes the Spring Boot application as an entry point for that particular class. So we are using at the Spring Boot application annotation instead of enable auto configuration to enable the auto configuration feature of a Spring Boot. So it's that simple, but here is a statement. So here it's a statement: Spring Boot auto configuration feature automatically configures the Spring application based on the jar dependencies included in the project. But how? So when we add a Spring Boot starter data JPA, for example, when we add a Spring Boot starter JPA dependency, we see that the Spring Boot auto configures the data source and entity manager. So it will configure automatically the data source as well as the entity manager when we add the data JPA. We can also disable the auto specific configuration class. So this is how when we add a dependency, this will automatically configure related things. Okay, so related configuration, it will automatically configure when we add that's at the Spring Boot application annotation. So again, there is an issue, like if we don't want to apply those configuration on particular classes or particular packages, in that case, how we can exclude? So we can exclude with the help of exclude attribute of enable auto configuration. So we can also disable the specific auto configuration classes if we do not want to be applied. We use the exclude attribute of the annotation at enable auto configuration to disable the auto configuration classes. For example, at enable auto configuration of exclude equals to data source auto configuration dot class. So this class already have a configuration, then why to include auto configuration? Or this particular class don't want auto configuration, then no need of including it. So we can exclude it with the help of exclude attribute. So this is how auto configuration works. Let's see in the IDE. So as you know that this is an EMS application we have saw in the last video. So you can see this is an entry point. You can see the class name with an at Spring Boot application annotation with the main method which runs this particular class with a Spring application class is called a entry point of this application. So when this is itself is an entry point, then all the auto configuration will start from this. So this will enable the auto configuration. So this is a entry point. Apart from this, all the dependencies which is added, once the application loaded, everything will come into live. With the help of auto configuration, it will configure all of them. So as we discussed, this exclude is there in enable auto configuration. When it is wrapped inside the Spring Boot application, then this attribute should be supported into the Spring Boot application. So here as well we can include. Simply I'll take an example of entity, some entity. I'll just make it as an address dot class. So if you don't want to include auto configuration in this particular class, then you can exclude, but actually it requires, because of some mapping is done here, so obviously it will throw an exception. So auto configuration, you can see the following clause could not be excluded because they are not auto configuration classes. So this is how we can exclude it, and this is how the auto configuration will work in the Spring Boot auto configuration. So that's all for this tutorial. So if you still have any doubts about the auto configuration, please drop in the comment box. I'll make sure to answer your question. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to Master J Skills. So that's all for today. I'll catch you guys in the next video, and thanks again for watching.